You ever just stop and think about how weird laughter is? Seriously, it's this bizarre, involuntary spasm where we just make these loud, kind of honking sounds. And we do it in every single culture all over the world, but why? What is actually going on in our brains that makes something funny? Okay, let's get into it and unpack the science of what makes us LOL. This line from the legend, Mel Brooks, I mean, it just nails a fundamental truth about humor, right? It's all about perspective and distance. What's a total tragedy for one person can be absolutely hilarious to somebody else. And that idea, that's the key to our first major theory of comedy. So, how do you make something funny? Well, according to a lot of psychologists, you need to create a situation that is two things at once. It needs to be wrong, but it also has to be harmless. This whole idea is called the benign violation theory, and it basically says that humor lives in that perfect sweet spot right between those two things. Okay, let's break that down. The first part is the violation. Now, this is anything that messes with our sense of what's normal. It could be breaking a social rule, a moral code, or even just physical dignity, like in slapstick comedy. But the second part is just as important. We have to see the situation as benign, or, basically okay. When both of those things happen at the exact same time, our brain goes, hey, that's funny. So to see if this theory actually holds up, some researchers at the University of Colorado Boulder put it to the test. They showed people a whole bunch of scenarios, from kind of boring to, well, morally questionable. And they asked them two simple things. Is this wrong? And did it make you laugh? And this is where the data gets really, really interesting. Just take a look. For the scenario where a guy snorts his own father's ashes, I know, wild. 82% of people said, yep, that is wrong. But a pretty high 38% also found it funny. This just shows the theory in action perfectly. The exact same event can be seen as both a violation and benign enough to make us laugh. Okay, so what's the secret ingredient that makes a violation feel benign or harmless? It's psychological distance. Think about the Mel Brooks joke. It's funny because it's happening to you, not me. That's social distance. Or it could be distance in time. Like the comedian Carol Burnett said, comedy is tragedy plus time. It's that distance that turns something scary or upsetting into a joke. All right, so that explains dark humor pretty well, but what about a classic joke? The kind with the setup and a punchline. This brings us to our next big idea, which is all about the little puzzle-solving game that goes on inside our heads. So this is called the incongruity resolution theory, and it basically says that a joke sets up an expectation. Then the punchline completely shatters that expectation with something that feels totally out of place. That's the incongruity. The humor, the laugh, comes from our brain successfully figuring out the hidden connection. It's like our brain gets a little jolt of pleasure from solving the puzzle. So yeah, a joke basically works in three stages. First, you've got the setup, which gets your brain heading down one specific path. Second, the punchline throws a total wrench in the works, creating a surprise. And third, you get that aha moment. That's the resolution, where your brain finds a new, unexpected logic that makes the whole thing make sense in a new way. Here's a perfect, simple example. A gymnast asks, "Can you teach me to do the splits?" The instructor says, "How flexible are you?" And the gymnast replies, "Well, I can't come in on Thursdays." See what happened there? The setup makes us think about physical flexibility. The punchline throws in a totally different idea, scheduling, and the resolution is our brain instantly getting the double meaning of the word flexible. That sudden switch is what makes us laugh. Okay, so we get the structure of a joke, right? But what's happening on a biological level? What is the actual neurochemical process that makes us feel amused? Let's take a look at what's actually firing off inside the brain. So it turns out neuroscientists have found that processing humor happens in two totally different stages. First is comprehension. That's just getting the joke. It's a cognitive thing. It lights up the language and logic parts of your brain. But the second stage, appreciation, that's where the magic really happens. This is the part that actually feels good, and it activates the brain's reward system. And that feeling of enjoyment, it comes from a rush of dopamine released in an area of the brain called the ventral striatum. And get this, that's the exact same reward circuit that lights up when we enjoy things like great food, our favorite music, or winning a game. Your brain is literally giving you a treat for solving the joke's puzzle. And that reward, that little pleasure hit, is the neurological reason for what our first theory called a benign appraisal. The violation feels okay because our brain is telling us it's fun. So yeah, a good punchline is literally a reward for your brain. It's this private, internal hit of pleasure. But that raises a really interesting question, doesn't it? If the reward is all internal, why is the reaction, laughter, so external? Why do we make all that noise? Well, it's because humor isn't just about one single brain getting a dopamine hit. Laughter, at its core, is deeply, deeply social. In fact, its evolutionary origins probably have a lot more to do with communication than they do with comedy. I absolutely love this observation from a gamer on Reddit. Just think about it for a second. To laugh on a push-to-talk system, you have to consciously decide to press a button. You're not saying anything useful, but you feel this intense compulsion to share the sound of your laughter. Why is that? It's because laughter was never just for you. It evolved as a pre-verbal signal meant for other people. It's a way of communicating to everyone around you. I mean, if humor was just an internal feeling, we just feel good inside and that'd be it. The fact that we make a loud, distinct noise shows that it's designed to be broadcast. Now, you're probably thinking, but wait, I laugh when I'm all by myself. And that's a great point. The most likely answer is that our evolutionary wiring just hasn't caught up with modern life. For most of human history, being truly alone was super rare and pretty dangerous. So that instinct to send out a signal is still there, even when no one's around to hear it. But the original, the OG purpose of laughter has always been social, to build bonds and show solidarity. And the roots of laughter go so incredibly deep. It's a universal language found in every human culture. One really powerful theory is that it evolved as a kind of false alarm signal, a way for our ancestors to communicate that a potential threat, like a rustle in the bushes, turned out to be nothing. It's a powerful bonding tool, and we know it's ancient because even our closest relatives, the great apes, make laughter-like sounds when they get tickled. And this social function is exactly why laughter is so contagious. More than any joke you could ever tell, the sound of someone else laughing is the most powerful trigger to make you laugh too. It's an automatic, empathetic response designed to spread a signal of safety and bonding through a group as fast as possible. All right, so let's just quickly recap the big ideas. Humor often comes from these benign violations, things that are a little bit wrong but also harmless. Jokes are basically cognitive puzzles that reward our brains with a nice hit of dopamine when we solve them. And maybe most important of all, laughter is an ancient, contagious social signal that evolved to help us bond and communicate that everything is safe. Which leaves us with one final thought. Every single time you laugh, you're tapping into this ancient pre-verbal communication system. So the next time you share a laugh with someone, just think about the signal that you're sending out into the world. What are you communicating and what kind of bonds are you building?